Hi, this is Jim Hilgendorf. My wife Elizabeth and I are continuing our journey of traveling together to a new America. Elizabeth passed away about a year and a half ago, but we're together still, heart to heart, in life, in death, moving together, reaching out to people all across this country. And as we move along, I like to really remember some of the remarkable people that have come before us here in America. Two of these were two sisters, the Grimke sisters, Angelina and Sarah. Sarah was born in 1792. Angelina was born in 1805. They grew up on a plantation in South Carolina. Their father, John, was a judge and personally held hundreds of slaves. He was totally against the abolition of slavery and totally for the subordination of women. In this atmosphere, somehow these two white women, stood up by themselves and became nationally known advocates of the abolition of slavery and spoke out enormously for women's rights. Angelina wrote one time a treatise in which she really spoke to the white women of the South, encouraging them to stand up against slavery and for human rights, for women's rights, but especially against slavery because it violated the principles of the Declaration of Independence, for one thing, and also violated the principles of her own Christian religion. She wrote one time, "I know of no men's rights or women's rights. I only know of human rights." And these two women became nationally known. They spoke north and south, and they met a lot of opposition on both sides for their advocacy of abolition, but also for their stance upon women's total equality and rights. These were two women of extraordinary courage who stood up in a time when it was extremely difficult to espouse these views. In our own time, we also have kind of a morally conflicted time. The last several years, we have moved into a society and a president, a political party that stood up against races, against African Americans, Mexican Americans, people of other nationalities and nations, defamed women who are even now working to narrow and suppress the voices and votes of people all over the country, and education, of trying to block any education that brings to memory the horrors of slavery at that time when that was part of our fabric. This still hangs on, and I think now it's time to bring up as an example the spirit of these two women who stood up among this morally confusing society and stood up for what is right. We cannot keep going and supporting a political Republican Party that supports the principles of the former President Trump. still hanging on to these ideas that divide us, confuse us, separate us from each other, and attempt to taking us back to a time of white supremacy and even that atmosphere of slavery and the subordination of women. So time to stand up. Time to stand up for everyone and go against these principles, stand up against them. And especially the youth. This is a new time. We have to move beyond these old distinctions of race, ethnicity, nationality, religion that separate and divide us and bring us into the new reality of who we really are on this planet Earth. Human beings, extraordinary human beings who at their heart are tied with their very lives to the core of the universe itself. Time to move into a new dimension of being here in America. And especially to the youth, I'd like to just finally say, please keep faith with yourself. Keep faith with your greatest dreams for yourself, for other people, for America, and for the world. Nam Myo Renge Kyo.